Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Martinez of Everything Just So, and I'm thrilled to have you here. My session is all about organization, and if you know me at all, you know organization is my thing. When I received those responses back from my subscribers, so many of them had some concerns about getting organized while teaching virtually. And there were so many questions, there's no way that I could cover it all, but there were three that kind of popped up continually, multiple times. And so I took those three big questions or those three big concerns, and that's what the summit or what this session of the summit is all about. So, my session today is about 3 tips to keep you, your students, and your drive organized while teaching virtually. So, I'm hoping that I have some tips for you that will definitely be helpful, that'll help you kind of get organized and prep for back to school. I do have several resources for you. So if you haven't downloaded the session resources, I would do that either now, you can put me on pause, or do that after this session. But just remember that each speaker has created something for you. It could be a very simple note page. It could be something to use in your classroom. So make sure you download those, and let's get started. So up first, how do I keep my students organized? Now, there are several parts to this question, but the biggest one was helping students keep their assignments organized and streamlined. And the first part to this is making sure that your classroom is organized well to start with. Now, when I refer to classroom, there are all kinds of learning management systems out there. When I was surveying my newsletter subscribers, I found that most of them are on Google Classroom. I know not all, but it was by far, I think like 85% of them were in Google Classroom and using Google products. So that's what I'm going to cover today. But the ideas and tips that I share with you can be used in pretty much any LMS or any kind of platform that you're using. So I'm going to use kind of classroom as a catch-all. So I don't really mean the physical space, but whatever management system that you're using if you're teaching virtually. So there are 3 big questions that will help drive how you start to get organized. The first one is, are you self-contained? If you're self-contained, you can pretty much do what you want and set up your system however best works for you. I know that many of you, especially in upper elementary, are not. So then the next 2 questions apply to you. First, do you share students with other teachers? So in my example, my last position, I was in a partnership with a math teacher, and we both had a homeroom, and then we swapped for math and then ELA. So I shared my students with him. Now, if that is the case, if you have a teaching partner that you share students with, then you both need to sit down together, whether that's virtually or physically, and decide how you're going to set up your classrooms. If you were a high school teacher, then you can kind of do what you want. But if you're an elementary school students, if you have elementary school students, I highly suggest that you and your teaching partner get on the same page and set your classrooms up the same way. It's difficult enough for students to navigate these systems on their own, especially if they don't have parental support. And quite frankly, even if they do, parents don't know these systems either. So if they can learn one process and one way of doing it, you are going to help them and their family out tremendously. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. And then the next question is, do you share assignments with other teachers? So this would be true if you and your team get together and you create assignments together so that all teachers on a team are using the same assignments. If that's the case, then your entire team should get together and decide how you're going to name assignments so that it's consistent across all classes. Especially if you are departmentalized and you've got, so when I taught 6th grade, I had a homeroom, a social studies class, and then 5 ELA classes. I also had another class on top of that, which is another story. So if each one of us, the 5 people on my team, if we each named our assignments in a different way or set up our classrooms in a different way, it just adds to the overwhelm and the confusion for kids. So as much as possible, if you team teach, if you have other resource teachers coming into your room or in your virtual classroom to help students, then get together and decide how you will do it from the beginning. And then no matter what your process is, stick with it for the rest of the year to help both you and your students. Okay, I am going to switch over to my Google Classroom account. It is really empty. I created it as an example for you, so I'm sure that yours is going to look pretty different from mine, but I want to show you a couple of examples and some things that I've kind of alluded to here to help get you started. Okay, so just also another little side note. This session is supposed to be around 30 minutes. And I have so much to share with you in regards to organization that it's going to take pretty much that entire time, if not run over a little bit beyond it. So there's no possible way that I can walk you through the steps of setting up your entire classroom. However, I have linked resources to walk you through step by step how to do that if you need that help in that ebook that I talked about in the welcome video. So if you need that help, I have provided it for you. It just isn't going to be in this session. So what I did here, I set up a new classroom. There's only one student in there, but I've named it AM ELA. So this would be like my morning language arts group. And just a couple of things. First of all, some of my subscribers said that their stream, the classroom stream here, it's also a hot mess. There are notifications all over the place. Students are commenting and they can't keep up. So one of the first things I would do when you set up your classroom is come up here to your settings. Of course, you're going to have all kinds of information there that I don't have. And I would change your stream settings. So right here to only teachers can post or comment. I would use my stream as like an announcement feed. So that way, the only thing that they're going to see when they log into your class and right there on their homepage, their stream, they're going to be announcements from you, and that's it. So there's multiple options. If you want, you can say students can only comment, so they can comment on anything that you post, but I wouldn't use this one unless you have a very small class. Otherwise, it can just get to be too much. So make sure you check your settings on there. That'll definitely help keep you organized. And then classwork on the stream. You can either turn on notifications for all attachment and details, which means you're going to be inundated with notifications. You can receive or show condensed notifications, but for me, I have it all turned off. You can do the same. It's completely up to you. So those two things will help streamline the notifications that you get and kind of keep you a little bit more organized. Okay, so if we go back here and I click on classwork, let me explain a couple of ways that I would set it up if I were you. So first of all, again, if you have a teaching partner or a team, you want to make sure that you're sitting down together and deciding, how you're going to set that up. So this is just an example of a departmentalized class. Each of the teal categories is a topic. I don't like that they don't have like folders or categories, but they do call them topics. So I would create a main topic for each assignment or lesson type. So here I have morning work, reading, writing, small groups, and then I have 3 additional topics. Important information, which I have down here, and then I have weekly checklist or weekly assignments, and then assignment turn-in. So I'm going to go over the extra topics in a second, but let's first talk about labeling assignments. So again, there are multiple ways to do this, and everyone's going to have a way that makes sense to them. The most important thing, the key here, is making sure that they're clear and consistent. If your titles aren't clear, or if you change how you label things, your students won't understand or be able to keep up with them week to week. So whatever your method is, just pick one and stick with it. So I choose to use several abbreviations on mine. I want them to be as descriptive as possible so that they're clear, but then that becomes pretty wordy. The titles become really long. So if I use abbreviations, then that helps shorten the title some. And it may take just a second for, when I say second, I mean a little bit of time for students to remember what the abbreviations are, but that's also why I keep them here. And the longer they use them, the more they'll remember. Like this W2MW makes no sense to you right now, but it will in a second, and students will get the hang of it pretty quickly. All right, so in my classroom, I had assignments for the following content areas where I showed you, and then for each assignment, I would label it with a W for week, and then put a number. You can stick the date in here. For again, that becomes a little bit long for me if I put it up front. I put it out here to the side on some of these. Or you can just put like, this is W1, so week 1 assignment list. This is week 1 morning work, week 1 reading assignment, and so on. So if you label your assignment with week 1, it also helps you search for that assignment later, or even your students search for that assignment. So labeling it with the week was definitely helpful for me. Also, when you add a new assignment, so if I were to go in here and create an assignment and then assign it to one of these topics, it will go to the top. But in case you didn't know, you can move these around. So let's say you want it to go in ascending order. Let's say you want one on top and then to go down, which I don't really recommend. I don't know why you'd want to do that. But you can move things around however you like. You can even move your topics around. So let's say this one I want at the very top. You can do move up, move down, so you can get yourself organized that way. But just for students, to make it clear for them, I would make sure that the current week is on top of every single topic. That way they can easily find the assignment that they need to work on for that week. Okay, simplifying the process of finding assignments, links, and other information is always best for students, but especially when you're not by their side to help them. So that's the reason for the 3 additional topics. So first of all, I think it's important, and it's also just really smart, to have an important info section in each one of your classes. When I first set up my classroom, I had this listed at the very top, and then I ended up moving it down because a few reasons. One, I wanted to make sure these were always on top, and I'm going to go over these in a second. But if you let students know that, if you ever have any kind of question at all, just scroll to the bottom of your class for this important info section. They'll be able to find it without a problem. But this is where you can store links to sites that students visit frequently, your grading policies, a syllabus if you have one, if that's applicable to you. But if you keep everything in one place, it makes it easier for students, but also for their parents or families at home. You can have a frequently asked questions section for questions that you receive often, and then also the answers so that you're not constantly re-answering the same questions over and over again. So for instance, that's an FAQ. This could be the links that you always use, so they would pull it up. You would have your links. Whoops, I clicked the wrong one. You would have your links on this page. So let's say you want them to visit your local library online often, or they use ScoopPad or whatever. You can link it all here. That way they don't have to create their own bookmarks. They don't have to, constantly go looking for that information. It's just all right here for them. Okay, another thing that I would do is I would have a weekly assignment section. And I say this is especially important the younger your students are. So this is the purpose of the weekly assignment. Sometimes it's called a checklist. I guess it just depends on what you put in here. I don't have checklists in here. Those are kind of smart too, especially if you have younger students, but I have some assignment lists, so I'm going to show you what those are. So each week you can create a Google slide that lists all the assignments or tasks that have to be completed that week, and then you can link each assignment to the slide so that all students need to do is go through their list, click the link, and then they can check it off or just count it as being done when they're finished. So let me show you an example. If this is, let's say, my week 2 weekly assignment, this is what I would have listed here. This is just one Google slide. I can open it. And this is from my assignment slides resource. And I've just included one slide here, but let me show you the actual slide resource. Okay, so there's a couple of different versions in here. First one is for, let's say you have younger students, and especially if you're self-contained, this might be helpful for you. You could use the assignment slide as just kind of like a checklist for each day. You could link here, let's say you are going to take a virtual field trip or the Zoom, you have a Zoom meeting that day. You can actually put a link here. You can link this information so students would just come in here, click the link, and go to it. If you have upper elementary students, let me go to this one. These assignment slides are super helpful because you can list every single thing that a student has to do in a week's time. So you can list all of their reading assignments in one place. all their writing, important notes, whatever you want to do. And how these slides work is you first have to create the assignment here. So let's say I create a morning work assignment here and a reading assignment for this week and a small group assignment. And then you come in here, you click copy link, you go to your slide, and let's say this is that assignment, which it's not, but you come in here and you attach the link to this text. So when students receive it, after you get done assigning this to them, then all they have to do is come here, click it, and it will take them directly to the assignment rather than having to check each one of these topics and like say, okay, I need to pull up this and do what's here, and I need to pull up this and do what's here. Because most of the time, they're going to have more than one reading assignment for a week, and so they have to check, like maybe this would say W2 assignment 1, and then W2 week 2 assignment 2. That's a lot for younger kids to keep up with. So if you use these assignment slides, you can link everything for the week in one place. They just go there, check it off, and are done. So there are different options in this resource. There are some that have 4 boxes, there's 5 boxes, and it goes all the way up to 8. I'm giving you a portion of this for free. This is included in the download that I have at the top. If you go to the main sessions page, it says download session resources. If you find mine under D3, you're gonna, or day 3, sorry, see, I use abbreviations all the time and you don't know what D3 is. So if you go under day 3, you'll find mine and this will be in there. So there's that. Okay, the last extra topic that I mentioned at the beginning of this is this assignment turn-in. So let me try to explain this as quickly and easily as possible. So I had several teachers say that they simply couldn't keep up with the status of students' assignments, and they received way too many emails about each one. So they got an email when a student had a question or when they turned it in. And if you have 50 students and you get notifications every single time a kid does something, your mailbox just becomes flooded. So I found this idea. This is not mine. I don't honestly know who started this, but whoever it was, I think was a genius. But what you can do is create an assignment turn-in sheet. So when students finish an assignment, they will come here. This is another reason why I put the info at the bottom, because I want this to be at the very top. So this, you don't ever have to change. You create one form. It'll last you all year long. And this is it. And it's very simple. Whenever a student finishes an assignment, they come and complete the form rather than sending it off to you like they normally would so that you get a notification. You simply ask them to come here and fill this out, and you change these fields to whatever you want it to be. I just set this up very quickly and very simply for you to kind of give you an idea of how this works. They put their name, the assignment name, and you can make this as clear as possible. Like, they can't just put in reading work. They need to put the actual title of the assignment. Then here they put the link to the completed assignment. And you can also add in something else, like, you know, kind of like an exit ticket. So tell me one thing you learned, or tell me how you feel about the assignment, or tell me about your understanding or your process. Is this your best work? Whatever you want, or you can skip this altogether. And then you could include this box just in case, you know, a student wants to tell you something about that assignment. And then they click submit, and all of this goes straight to a spreadsheet. Let me show you that real quick. Okay, so what I just showed you was the student version. That's how they will see it when they pull up that form after you've assigned it to them in your class. But this would be your view. This is how it looks to you if you've never completed a form. It's super simple. So here you put in whatever information you want. You can put in extra directions or description here. You can add questions to it, whatever you want to do. You can change the color, you can add an image, make it as fancy or plain as you want. Then if you click on responses, you can also go here to where it says settings. You can limit, you don't want to click this where it says limit to 1 response. You want them to be able to fill it out multiple times a day, or even during the year, of course, because they're going to be using this every time they finish an assignment. But you can turn on other things if you want to collect email addresses or anything else you want to do. You can check all of these. So after you've set it up the way that you want it, if you click on responses and then click here, you can select where it's going to go. So select the response destination. And you can also say get an email notification for new responses, but you don't want that. That's the whole point of this form, is that you are trying to reduce the email notifications that you're getting. So you don't want to click that, but you can set up the actual spreadsheet that it gets saved to. I already did this, so let me show you what it looks like. It's automatically going to fill in all of these sections. It'll have a timestamp for whenever the student submitted it, and then these are the fields that will be completed once they send it to you. Now, you can go in and add any additional columns that you want. So I added these two. So graded, if I come in here and I've graded it, I can use this to keep track of what I've graded and what I haven't. If you want to get in the habit of always leaving feedback for something, you can check that off as you go. If you want to add in additional note fields or anything else that you want to keep track of for assignments, you can add as many columns as you want. So the best thing about this is going to go along with another tip I'm going to give you about your schedule, is that you can get in the habit of checking this sheet a certain number of times a day. So let's say you decide you want to check it 3 times a day. So those 3 times that you have it scheduled, you'll come here and check. You don't need to be notified. You don't need to get email notifications. You just know during a set period of time during the day, you're going to go through the completed assignment sheet and either grade or check status or whatever it is that you're set to do, but you don't need to get all those notifications like you have been getting. So this could be a lifesaver. Okay, perhaps not a lifesaver, but a definite time saver and a definite organization piece of gold for you if you want to go ahead and use that. I'm also including a link to this. Again, I made it as simple as possible because whatever I decide works is not going to work for you. So you can add any question that you want to, any field. You can change everything here. You can delete everything here. It's up to you to use it however you like, but I'm going to include that, a link to it, in my session download. So that'll be there for you too. Okay, next big issue was my Google Drive is a hot mess. All right, just like the assignments, there are all different kinds of ways to organize your drive. So not one way is going to work for everyone. And again, there's no way I could cover multiple ways because there's only so much time. So I'm going to show you what I do. It's not earth-shattering. It's not rocket science, but it works. And it keeps me super organized. I know exactly where everything is. And I absolutely love this system. I use this system to organize my paper files when I would scan them to my hard drive. So on my computer hard drive, it's organized the exact same way. So when I started using Drive, it was easy to implement and start organizing. So this drive in particular, I set up just for this session. So it's super empty. There's not much here, but I'm going to show you, give you a really quick look. This is the main drive that I use all the time. So you can see there are all kinds of folders. These are my main categories or folders. If you think of this as a filing cabinet, which most of us don't have anymore, these would be like the big drawers. And then there are all kinds of subfolders and then subfolders. And it looks like a lot, but the more specific you get, the more organized you will be and the easier it will be to find things. So this is what my main drive looks like. It is not all clear and empty like this one, but there's no way I could show you all this stuff. And just for privacy reasons for one, but two, there's not enough time. So I'm going to walk you through this one to give you a head start. Okay, so for this presentation only, I set up this one that's called School. And this is how I would set it. This is how I set up my files, like I said, on my hard drive when I was teaching way back of, I think I started doing that in like 2004. And I've tried multiple ways of doing this. And so I'm going to tell you what I tried that didn't work, that I thought was a really great idea at first. And then what I switched to, I think, like I said, maybe around 2004-ish. It's when I finally kind of got it together. So first of all, on your Google Drive, if you have one main account where you save everything to, then I would do what I have here. And I would have these main folders. So this is my business stuff. This is anything I do through Everything Just So. This would be your personal file. So anything that you use personally would go here. And then I would have a school or a work file. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Your main categories. I would have one main category, one main folder for every school year. Okay, so that's what these are. And I'm going to talk about each one of these in pretty decent detail. So I'm just going to go over these really quickly first. I would have one folder for committees. So that would be, like for me, I was on a PAC team, I was on a literacy team, an RTI team. So all different kinds of committees. That's what this big folder is for. I would have one folder for curriculum. And then I would have one for team. I think I just used team up here. I meant these were committees, but this would be like my ELA team. So these are my peers. These are my other third grade ELA teachers who are all on a grade level and content level team together. This is the folder that Google sets up for you on your drive for your Google Classroom. So that's already there. Actually, it was on the main drive. That's right. It was here to start with, and I moved it in here, which is fine. It doesn't change anything or mess anything up. I would have one for professional development, one for professional resources, one for technology, and then any other main teams that you're on. So this would be my grade level team. So it doesn't matter if they teach the same content as me, anybody that's on the same grade level that I am on, I'm going to have a separate folder for them. Now you might need additional folders. This is just to get you started. So I'm going to walk you through each one. Okay, let me tell you what did not work. When I first started doing this on my computer hard drive, I would have a folder for every school year, and then I would list, I would have different folders for everything. So I would have a folder for reading lessons, writing lessons, morning work. I'd put them in and divided it out, organized it by school year. So I thought that was a great idea because I would go back, let's say it's 2022, and I would say, oh yeah, I want to use that reading lesson that I used in 2019. I could go right to the 2019 folder, pull it up and use it. Well, here's the problem. After you've been in the classroom a while, and or once you get older, you don't remember what year you taught that specific lesson in. I mean, it could have been 5 years ago, 15 years ago. I honestly don't know. So if you try to organize everything by school year, if you're a brand new teacher, it sounds great right now. Trust me, don't. You're going to have to go back and reorganize everything later because you will not remember unless you have some kind of genius level memory. I'm telling you, please take this tip. You won't remember. So do this instead. Yes, you definitely do need an academic year calendar or academic year folder, but here's what it's for. You are only going to save the things that are true for that academic year in that folder. And most of the time that all relates to students. So student information is not going to be carried on from year to year. It's very specific to a year. So anything that has to do with just that year, which honestly I'd say 99% of is student specific, will go there. So here is where you can have testing results, copies of IEPs, lists of accommodations, health forms, whatever it is will all go here. It also makes it easy when the year is over, if you need to go in here and delete everything out so that you don't have it anymore. So yes, you definitely need an academic year folder, but it is only for things that are just for that academic year only, okay? Go back here to your committees. I would have a different folder for each committee, and here's why these are not year specific. This is also something that got me into trouble. I was on a literacy committee for multiple years, and when I first organized my information by year, academic year, if I wanted the notes on a certain topic, I would have to figure out what year did we talk about that in. And again, you're not going to remember. So even if you're not sure that you're going to be on a committee for multiple years, I would keep that in your main tree branch here. And then let's say you are only on the literacy committee for 1 year. If at the end of the year, you want to move that folder to the academic year, you can. And it's super easy. All you do is you click and drag Of course, it's not going to do it for me now, but you click and drag. It's not going to do it because of the presentation, but it's easy. If you weren't presenting and you weren't in presentation mode, you could get it done. But anyway, so if you keep your committees out on the main tree branch, we're going to call it the main or the trunk, then it's going to be easy to find. Okay. So then in each of these committees, you can have multiple subfolders depending on how much information you have. You may not need it. It just depends on the committee. But let's say you wanted to have a folder to keep all of the meeting agendas in. So all you do is create a new folder, which I just did, type in whatever you want it to be called and create. So then whenever you have an agenda to add, you simply upload it here. You can drag and drop, or you can click new file or upload an entire folder. That's just depends on what you're putting in there. So you can have as many subfolders as you want. And if you need to, I don't know why you would, unless you've got agendas like crazy, you can have subfolders within a subfolder. So just get as specific as you need to for whatever committee that you're working on. All right, let's get back to our main trunk here. Curriculum. Okay, this is another place where I got into trouble before. I used to keep everything by school year, which I've already talked about, and then I had to go back and find it. So I quickly learned that was problematic. So everything I use for teaching goes here. It goes inside of curriculum. And then I have main folders for the actual content topic, so the content. So I have a reading folder, I have a writing folder. Whatever it is I teach, the content, they get their own folder. And then within the content folder, I have another folder. So this could be your standards, which I'm actually going to put somewhere else. But let's say this is main idea. So everything I teach related to main idea would go in this folder. This is what's going to make it really simple. Let's say in 5 years down the road, you say, oh yeah, 5 years ago, I taught that really great lesson on main idea, or at least I think it was 5 years ago. I want to reteach it. Instead of having to figure out what academic year that you taught that, you just remember that you saved it under main idea because it's a main idea lesson. So you simply go to your main idea folder. So I would do this for all of your content. Whatever subtopics that you teach underneath a main content area, have a different folder for that. And yes, it is going to sound like a lot of folders. For instance, let me take you back to this. It is all kinds of folders, but when I need something, I know exactly where to go. I don't have to spend time searching and thinking. And I also, if I just have these main folders, they're going to get really full really fast. For instance, this curriculum folder, it's really going to fill up. So the subfolders help you to divide up that content and get it organized. And it'll make a world of difference. So that's what the curriculum folder is about. If we go back here, this is the same thing as committees. So anything that you do together with your ELA team, that would go here. This Google Classroom does for you. Professional development. These are things related to, obviously, PD. So I would keep anything that you have that goes with the conference that you attended. So I would have folders for conferences. I would have folders for courses that you take. I would have a folder for your license renewal information. Maybe you have one for the CEUs that you keep track of. Anything related to professional development would go here. Then, I don't know if you're like me at all, but when I was in the classroom, I had so many people send me articles, or I would save my own articles or information about things that I wanted to read, and I never got around to it. So they started stacking up on my desk. Well, I can't take that. It drove me crazy. So I started scanning them and putting them in a professional resources folder. So you can have all kinds of subfolders here. You can have articles, whatever it may be, but professional resources are just resources related to your job that either you use on a regular basis or that you want to get to, or however you want to use it. All right, technology. Technology is the folder I would put anything tech related. So passwords, user manuals, guides, anything that was related to technology, I put it all in that folder. And again, this is just a team folder. So those are the basic folders that I would have if I were you. You may need some extra main folders, but I guarantee you you're going to have all kinds of subfolders. So first I would get your information organized into folders. That's the very first step in getting your drive organized, is setting up your folders. Okay, a couple of other things related to Drive before we move on. Again, most of you are very new to Drive, so that's why I'm going to go over these. If you are a Drive master, you obviously don't need these tips. You can fast forward it if you need to. I won't be offended because I won't know. So I'm going to go back to my Drive. A couple of things. You can have either a grid view where it has the folders like this, or you can have a list view. I like the list view, so I'm always in list, but you use whatever you want. Typically, this little caret over here isn't expanded like I have it, but this may help you. So for instance, I'll go back to my main Drive. When I was prepping for this conference, I was going back and forth between multiple folders, and if I kept this closed, like this, then I had to go here, I had to scroll, I had to find what I was looking for, and it just would take forever. So sometimes I will keep this expanded or open, and it helps me jump back and forth between folders. So that's a little tip that maybe you can use. This recent section, if, like I said earlier, if I was jumping back and forth between multiple files, sometimes it's helpful to go to my recent folder, and it helps me pick something out very quickly. However, if you use a lot of files in Drive, this folder gets packed pretty quickly, so it's not really that helpful, which is why I like the starred folder or the starred feature. I have very few resources starred at a time, or files starred at a time. It just depends on what I'm using, you know, that month or quarter, whatever it is I'm working on. Because again, this can be as packed as the recent folder if you kind of let it get out of control. So starred would be those documents that you use. It could be on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is, but you often refer to them and you want super easy access to. So in order to star a folder or a file, you can right click it, and then there's a drop down box that says add to starred, or if it's open, and of course that's not a good example because that's a PDF, but if it's open, then up here you're going to see a star. You can just click on it and star it. So this one I've already starred, but it would look like this. If you haven't starred it, you just click it and it will appear in your starred folder. So that's another easy way to access files that you use pretty often. Okay, so in case this becomes full and it stops being useful, you can always unstar documents or resources that you're no longer using, but you can also use this priority function. I love this one. So when you click on priority, it's going to list all the files that you used recently, which sometimes this is helpful, sometimes it's not. I mean, honestly, I don't know why this is here because you can access these under starred, or recent rather, not starred, but recent. But here's what's great is you can create a workspace. Now, here's how I would use it if I were you. I created this one just as an example. I just updated my Organize Just So course, and these are materials that I use or resources that I use often in that course. So I added them to a workspace. That way I don't have to go into my recent file and scroll down. Okay, where's that resource? I don't know where it is. I don't need to keep a bunch of files starred. I simply go to my workspace. Now, here's where I feel like it would be most helpful for you. When you are lesson planning, if you're anything like me, you're referring to multiple documents. So maybe you need to look at your standards. Maybe you need to look at your course guide. Maybe you need to look at your team guide. You've got all kinds of things that you're looking at and you're bouncing back and forth with. So if you create a workspace, you can save those docs here and just go here every single time that you're lesson planning. So you can have up to 25 files in any of your workspaces. And to add a doc, it's super simple. You just click where it says choose. You find where it is you want. It's either your recent, you've used it recently, You can look for it in your drive, or maybe somebody shared it with you. So you find what you want. Let's say I want this one. You click on it, and let's say I want all of these. You click whatever files you want, come down here and click Insert, and it'll populate, and click Done. So now when you go to lesson plan, everything's here for you. And it's just as easy to create. You simply click Create, call it whatever you want, create it, and then like I just showed you, add your files. So that's one of the best tools that I just honestly recently started using. Either I didn't notice that it was there until a few months ago, or I just didn't bother with it, but it's a really great tool here to help keep organized. All right, so as a bit of a summary before we move on to the very last point or the last question, my best tips for keeping your drive organized are these: creating folders, subfolders, and sub-subfolders that make sense to you and are clearly labeled. I would also get in the habit of being specific in how you name files. So calling something reading assignment is going to be worthless to you unless you only ever create one reading assignment, which if you're a reading teacher, that's not going to be possible. So be specific. You can use abbreviations or codes like I explained on these assignments. You can do the same for your drive and begin naming your files in the same way to kind of create a habit for you. And also, this is important, okay? It sounds a little excessive, but get in the habit of going through your drive every day to move files to their appropriate folders if necessary. I know you feel like you don't have the time for it, but here's the honest truth. You have 1 to 2 minutes to drag a couple of odd folders to where they're supposed to go, or assignments to their correct folders. It's a lot easier to do when there's just a couple to move and organize at the end of the day, instead of waiting until your hot mess drive is screaming for help and you're just completely overwhelmed by how much work you have to do to get it organized. So just take a minute or two every day and just drag folders or files where they need to go, and you will stay on top of your drive. All right, we have come to the last issue that most of the teachers had in that survey that I sent out, and it's how to keep myself organized. So first of all, you need to create and stick to a work schedule. Now, this is something I cover in my Organized Just So course, and it's especially true when you're teaching virtually or teaching from home. So we need to create a schedule. I'm going to go over really quickly what I mean by that. But then also, if you chunk your tasks and complete them together, it's going to save you time and help keep track of what you've completed and what you still have to do. This sounds, easier said than done, but once you set this up and you stick to it, I promise it's super easy, and it's going to make a huge difference in how you feel, whether you're organized, streamlined, or if you're just kind of all over the place and a hot mess. And I keep saying that, but I promise you, in fact, I wish I would have counted to see how many times it was said, but it was said a lot. So here's an example, okay? You're going to create a schedule. It can be on paper or a digital version. I actually have one for you, and it's real pretty. It comes from my course, looks just like this, but this is just the plain blank one. I wanted to create really fast ahead of time so we can kind of move through this, but this is a digital one. You can obviously use paper too. So some schools have established schedules for teachers and how they have to do all of their work virtually, and some have control over how they schedule their day. So the first thing you're going to do is just go in and block out the must-dos or what is scheduled, and then you can go back in and make little appointments for yourself for the chunks of time and the chunking of specific tasks. So here's what I mean by that, okay? So let's say you have one group of students coming into your classroom to meet with you on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to call them the red group. And then you have your other half of students coming in on Thursday, Friday. We're going to call them the orange group. Wednesday has been set aside to plan, clean your room, whatever it is, but that's what all this kind of blue space or this time in between. Your school has established that from 8 to 10, you have to do, this is either in-person or online lessons. So this is when you're meeting with small groups. This is when you're available for office hours. And again, Thursday and Friday is the same. So your school decided this, you don't really have a choice, so go ahead and block those in. And the same for your afternoon office hours and small group meetings. So I blocked those in first. They're giving you a break from 11 to 12, so you can take your lunch, you can take a break. So you block this in. They've also, not required, but suggested that you use this half-hour every day to plan. So we're just going to block that off. All right. Some of you were in the habit of, every 5 to 10 minutes getting in Google Classroom, going on your Gmail account and checking to see what assignments are in, who has questions, who needs feedback, what needs graded. And it felt like you were just doing that constantly during the day. Okay, you have to stop that. You have to stop. Yes, you do need to check your email. And yes, you do need to check the assignments and check into Google Classroom, not just once a day, but often, a few times a day. However, if you are in the habit of doing it every 10, 15, 20 minutes, you will never make progress in your day. You're always going to feel like you're overwhelmed and you're never moving on and getting things done. So you're going to chunk those tasks. You're going to set aside a chunk of time to do those every day. And I've already marked those for you. So before you have to meet with your small groups in the morning, you've decided from 7:30 to 8, I'm going to spend in my email. I'll respond to whatever I need to. Maybe schedule out some emails that need to be done, whatever. Organize, delete, go through. But that 30 minutes is devoted just to your email. You will not be checking social media. You're not going to be checking Google Classroom. Anything else, you're not going to plan. That whole 30-minute chunk is devoted just to email. Okay? So that's what I mean by chunking and also scheduling. Then here, from 10 to 10:30 every day, all 5 days, you're going to be in the habit of getting into your Google Classroom and checking assignments, grading, giving feedback. You are not going to check your email. You are not going to take a break. You are not going to plan. You're not going to do anything else but those things during that chunk of time. And then, because yes, you do need to be in your email more than once a day, you have scheduled out 3 chunks during the day before your job begins, in the middle of the day, and then also at the end of your day to check your email. So, this is just like when you're teaching in a classroom. You need to make sure that everyone, including parents, understand that you are not accessible every moment of the day. Because if you were teaching in the classroom face-to-face, they can't reach you every moment of the day because you are teaching. The same is true for you teaching from home or teaching virtually. So if you are in the habit of constantly checking your email and responding right away, you are telling people that you are available whenever they need you. And quite frankly, that's not realistic, because you're not. And if we ever go back to normal, where you are face-to-face in the classroom all the time, you are going to create this expectation that you are available whenever, when in fact you're not. So chunking these assignments and doing them at certain times of the day not only will help you and not only save you time, but it also teaches anybody who emails you, who wants to hear from you, that these are the times I'm available, and then every other time I'm doing something else. So that's why this is important as well. So I have in here scheduled 3 times a day to check my email, 3 times a day to check Google Classroom, my assignments, grade, etc. So you set this up, whatever works for you. Maybe you don't need to check your email 3 times a day. Whatever works for you, I would make sure that you schedule this and you keep to it. Now, that's the harder part, is being consistent with sticking to it. But the more you do it, just like anything else, the easier it becomes. And it's going to actually feel very freeing to you. Maybe when you first start this, you're going to kind of feel a little panicky, like, oh my gosh, I probably have 20 assignments waiting for me. Oh my gosh, I got to get it in there and grade it right away. But I promise, nothing's going to happen because they're sitting there for 2 hours. Again, if you had students face-to-face, everything is going to be sitting there for 2 hours anyway. So it's going to be fine. Everything will get done. In fact, you're going to get more done this way than you would otherwise. Okay, now the other part, this whole how do I keep myself organized, it was 2 parts. One is kind of being all over the place as far as checking assignments or scheduling my time. And then the other one is keeping track of everything I have to do. So for that part, I'm a list maker. I'm sure many of you are list makers as well. But if you're a list maker with 47 different lists, that's not helpful. So I would create one place where you keep track of everything. One place where you list everything, one place where, you almost like a calendar, keep track of what needs to be done and where it needs to be done and when. I'm going to show you an example. This is also a very simplistic version. You're going to get a copy of it. You can change it however you want, but this has been really helpful to me. So this is very similar to, I keep a content calendar. So it's all the blog posts that I want to write in a year, and also all the resources that I want to create in a year. And I used to keep these on paper lists. I would write down ideas that came to me. But then when I wanted to write a post or create a resource, I'd have to go find that little scrap of paper. Well, that just doesn't work very well. So I created a spreadsheet where it has actually double the number of columns, maybe even triple the number of columns that this one does. But this is kind of a watered down, simplistic version of what I use. This may not work for you, but it's probably something that you're not using now, but may be helpful for you. So I'm going to give it to you. You can ignore it or use it however you want. I've created 2 pages in here. This is the example, so I've pre-filled in a couple of things, and then this one is totally blank. You could have multiple pages. Maybe you have one of these for your schoolwork and one of these for home. Maybe you keep everything in one page. You do whatever you need to do. So here's what I do. I'm a very visual person. So I have all of my tasks or items that I want to keep track of color-coded by the specific topic. So for instance, if this were my blog post tracker, then I would color code the blog post I want to write about organization with one color, about ELA in another, etc. Okay, so you can do the same. I've set up these 5. If you want to add in more, you can add a row either above or below. Let's just put it above. So it's going to copy these colors. You just highlight what you want to delete, come up here, click reset, and then you can make your own categories. So let's say I want this one to be fuchsia, which that's pretty bright. But you do whatever you want. You call them whatever you want. Okay, so this column, so this is where you put the type. Whenever you add a new task or a new item to your sheet, you can copy the category here. So just click it, copy it, and paste it. So you don't have to fill in the color every time. You don't have to type. You just click whatever you want, copy, and paste. The list date is the date where I add it to my list. You may not find this to be necessary. For me, it was, which is a story for another day, but that's why I put this here. So I know when I added it to my list. The due date is self-explanatory. Some of these I want to keep track of. Yes, I have started that blog post or I started that task, but it's not done. So this helps me to see which of these, yes, I started, but it's in progress, but I still have more to do. So that's what this column is for. Complete is obviously when I get it done. This is where I write out the task. And then I added these on. So let's say one of these has to do with an assignment. So maybe you want to keep track of how many, whenever you have finished all assignment or whenever you've graded all of that assignment for one whole class, you could click graded. That may not be helpful for you. I'm just trying to give you an example of some other ways that you can use this. Maybe you want to keep track of when you give feedback for your entire class on a unit. You can come in here and click it. You can add notes. You can add as many columns as you want. If you're not sure how to do that, I grade these out, or I grade them out, so you wouldn't have to look at a bunch of blank columns and rows. But all you do, you click wherever you want to add something in. You can right click and then you insert one left or insert one right. Or you can come up here to where it says insert. So I'm just going to say insert one to the right. And then you just drag, expand. You can change the color of the fill here. You can add your notes. You can change the fonts, the sizes, bold, whatever you want to do. This is your sheet. But if I were you, I would use this to keep track of every task that I need for pretty much everything. And then let's say I want to sort this by due date. I want to see, okay, what are the assignments I have coming up? All you got to do is highlight the rows that you want to sort. Come up here to where it says data, click where it says sort range, and then decide how you want to sort it. So my due date column is C. So I want to sort by C. Click sort, and then it'll sort for you in whatever way that you've decided to sort. So again, I'm going to give you a copy of this one. You use it for in any way that you want to, or not use it all. That is totally up to you. All right, so those are the 3 tips for keeping you, your students, and your drive organized that I have for you. Before we close out our time together, I wanted to leave you with 2 things. To help you implement these changes, just remember that there are several resources that I've included in my session download. So make sure that you download those at some point today or before you lose access on the 30th of September. And then also for the exciting part, some of you already know this if you're already a subscriber. I told you about this ahead of time. But if you felt like the session was helpful, but it just kind of scratched the surface of what you need as far as organization help, I have another solution for you. I created a course called Organize Just So, and it was designed to get you organized and keep you organized for good. It includes 30 days of lessons with videos and resources to support you along the way. It also includes dozens of printable resources for you and your classroom that you can begin using immediately. And after being closed for several months, my course is open again for new students starting today. So to thank you for attending the conference and for coming to my chat in a moment, I am giving away 1 membership away for free. So this is not a trial membership or a sneak peek. It is a complete membership with full access to everything that's included. And this is what a membership includes. So there are 8 course modules, and inside those modules there are 30 lessons. Each one has at least 1 lesson video. Some of them have multiple videos. There is a printable course book in addition to digital resources or digital versions of the resources. There's a private Facebook community group where you can go to get answers to questions or support or even accountability to make sure that you actually go through this. And then these are the additional resources that all come included for free. There's a teacher binder, daily agenda slides, which is not the one that I showed you here. It's actually something that's different. There's a month worth of morning work prompts. There's small group materials needed slides, literacy station rotation slides, a spelling choice board that you can use in your centers, a story card writing center for a month, classroom job cards and applications, exit tickets that can be used for any kind of content area, conferring note sheets, absent work forms and labels, volunteer copy directions, printable to-do lists, multiple classroom labels and cards, and then full versions of the resources that I showed you today. And actually there's even more in there that I just don't have room to list everything. So what I'm giving away today is this. Everything that you're looking at, I'm giving it away for free. And it's super simple to enter and win. All you have to do is attend my speaker chat today. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and participate in the conversation. That's all you got to do. So I'm going to ask some questions. You can ask me questions, but in order for me to know that you're there, you have to say something. So that's why I'm going to ask that you participate in the conversation. When our chat ends, I'm going to choose a winner, and then I'm going to verify their registration because, quite frankly, I want to make sure that this goes to somebody who registered for the conference and not just anybody who kind of made their way to my Facebook page. So I'm going to close out the session or close out my chat, verify that the winner I chose registered for the conference, and then I will announce the winner later today. So I'm super, super excited about this course. I absolutely love it. It was a game changer in my teaching life. It made oh gosh, I can't even tell you. It changed. It changed my teaching life for sure. So I'm excited to give this away. If you are not interested in attending the speaker chat, but you want to learn more about the course or even purchase the course, like I said today, it is open again for purchase and for a new round of new students. I will put the link in my printable and also make it available to you so you can check it out. Okay, I want to say thank you to everyone who registered for our event, not just my session, but from all of us. We are so thrilled that you came. I hope that you found a ton of helpful tips and resources this week. And this weekend, you're going to receive a link to a conference survey. Please, please, please complete that for me, please. It will help me determine what worked well in this conference. What did you really enjoy? Which sessions did you enjoy? But I also want to know what didn't work well. What could we improve on? Because I'd like to do this again next summer, and you can help us plan for that with your feedback. So please make sure that you fill that survey out when you get it. Okay, I'm going to see you at my speaker chat. Thanks so much again for being here, and I hope you enjoyed.